So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I always love seeing that. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let me take you into the heart of it all. My name's Eric. I'm 57. Used to be in sales, mostly flooring, laminate, tile, carpet, you name it. I've sold it, nothing fancy, but I was good. I knew how to listen when someone wanted warm tones for their living room, but didn't want to say the word beige out loud. Now I mostly do consulting for a local renovation company. Fewer clients, more coffee. It's quieter work. And maybe that's what gave me too much space to think lately. The story I'm about to tell is about my mother, Janice. She was the kind of woman who believed in thank you notes, potato salad, and calling your kids even when they didn't pick up, especially when they didn't pick up. The thing that went wrong, I stopped answering her. Not all at once, just gradually, and with good enough excuses that I almost convinced myself they were the truth. Work was busy. My kids needed me. I was tired, or annoyed, or in the middle of something. Always in the middle of something. But there's a moment burned into me now, when I saw her name light up on my phone on my birthday, and I turned it face down on the table. That was the last time she called. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. That night in the hallway, with the light delay and the cold floor under my toes. That's where it all starts coming back. The birthday, the casserole, the way she used to hum when she did the dishes, the voicemail. I didn't play it that night. Not yet. I just stared at it, heart knocking in my throat, like her voice might come out of the speaker on its own. Like just seeing her name meant I owed her something. And I did. I guess. I still do. You ever have one of those moments where time just folds in on itself? That's what this was. A quiet hallway, a glowing screen, and the overwhelming feeling that I had unfinished business with someone who wasn't coming back. And I suppose this story is my way of trying to finish it. The thing about guilt is it doesn't yell, it whispers. It leaves post-it notes in your brain at 2 a.m. or sneaks into your coffee when you're alone in a diner, pretending to scroll through news headlines while your mind is actually replaying something you can't change. The day after I saw the voicemail, I did what any emotionally competent adult does. I ignored it. I went about my morning like I hadn't nearly had a breakdown in a hallway. Made coffee. Burnt toast. Argued with myself about how I didn't need to listen to some old message to grieve properly. Closure is for movies, right? But everything that day kept nudging me back toward her. I drove past her old church and noticed they'd put up new siding white vinyl. Cheap, but clean. She would have hated it. Said it looked like a cereal box. I smiled at the thought. And then, out of nowhere, I teared up so fast I had to pull over near a gas station just to breathe, which is exactly the kind of behavior that makes strangers glance at you like you might either start preaching or explode. The voicemail stayed unopened. That evening, I went up into the attic. Not sure why. I hadn't been up there in months, but it felt magnetic, like some part of her was waiting. Dust hit my throat like a punch, and I had to bat away cobwebs with the grace of someone who absolutely did not inherit his mother's sense of neatness. I found a box labeled in her handwriting, Eric High School. I almost laughed. Inside were report cards, a yellowed theater program from when I played the third pirate in Peter Pan. And this part, I wasn't ready for a note she'd written me after graduation. Just one line on a blue sticky note. You're already more than enough. Love, Mom. I sat there cross-legged. 57 years old and suddenly 18 again. I could hear her voice saying it. Just like when she left the birthday message, I didn't answer. She had a way of softening even hard truths. Like once, when I told her I was afraid I'd end up alone, she just smiled and said, "Not while I'm around, sweetheart. And even then, you're still not alone." I remember brushing her off, joking, "Geez, Mom, could you say something slightly less Twilight Zone?" But now, all these years later, I'd give anything to hear her say something spooky and comforting again. The attic was quiet, that kind of quiet that wraps around you like an old quilt musty. Maybe, but familiar. And sitting there with the box on my lap, I realized something I hadn't let myself feel in years. I missed her as a person, not just as my mom. The way she always smelled like peppermint gum and dryer sheets. The way her laughter could make even a DMV waiting room seem bearable. That's the thing. When you stop picking up the phone, you don't just lose the big moments, you lose the weird little rituals too. The way she used to hum Greensleeves while folding towels. Her awful knock-knock jokes. The way she'd say, "Oh, Eric," every time I swore. Like it genuinely shocked her, even at 50. And maybe I stopped answering, not because I didn't love her, but because she reminded me too much of who I used to be. The younger me, the not-so-jaded me, the version of myself I thought I'd outgrown but secretly missed. I didn't play the voicemail that night either, but I did take the sticky note downstairs. I stuck it to the side of the fridge, exactly where she used to leave me reminders about laundry, dentist appointments, and to eat something green once in a while. The blue note was crooked, but I didn't fix it. She never aligned them either. It made me smile in this tight, aching way. And it stayed there, like a lighthouse in the corner of my kitchen, guiding me toward a truth I was too stubborn to admit. That maybe I needed to hear her voice, even if it hurt, especially if it hurt. The night I finally played the voicemail, it wasn't dramatic. No storm outside, no bottle of wine in hand, just me, sitting at the edge of the bed with a half-cold cup of tea I'd forgotten I made. I didn't plan to do it. In fact, I opened my phone to check the weather, but my thumb hovered, and the muscle memory took over contacts. Voicemail. Mom, with that little gray dot of unplayed messages. It was from last February, her birthday. The moment I tapped it, I regretted it, like opening a door you've kept locked so long. You forgot what it guards. Her voice came through, crackly but warm. "Hey, sweetheart, I know you probably forgot, but I'm making that stew you hated as a kid and pretending it's still your favorite. I miss your voice. Just call me back." Okay, no reason. I just wanted to hear you today. That was it. No drama, no guilt tripping, just her soft, silly, and honest in that way. Only Mom seemed to be after you stop appreciating it. I must have sat there for 20 minutes after it ended. Not moving, not thinking, just feeling the shape of the silence that followed her voice. It wasn't emptiness, it was absence, a very specific absence, like the exact weight of a person in your life. Not too much, not too little, just gone. I replayed it again, then again, not because I didn't get it the first time, but because I did, and I knew, deep down, that was the last time I'd ever hear her say my name. And damn if she didn't say it like it still meant something. You spend your life trying to outgrow your childhood, trying to prove you're tough, or cool, or whatever version of adult the world sells you. But that night, all I wanted was to call her back and ask for the stew I hated. Sit at the table, let her tell the same story about how I used to cry when carrots touched mashed potatoes. She always told that one too loudly, like it was my defining origin story. I could feel the sting behind my eyes. But it wasn't sadness. Not exactly. It was the grief of having waited too long, of letting time harden things that should have been handled gently. Because here's the truth I hadn't said out loud, not to my brother, not to my partner, not even to myself in a mirror. I stopped calling because I didn't know how to be vulnerable anymore. Not with her, not with anyone. Somewhere between becoming a husband, a dad, a manager. I shelved that soft part of myself she knew best. I didn't want her to hear how tired I was, how small I'd let my world become. And maybe she didn't need to hear it. Maybe she just wanted to be there, in the margins, in the voicemails, in the blue sticky notes and awkward casserole recipes. She was always better at that than me. After I turned off the voicemail, I didn't cry, not right away. Instead, I walked downstairs, pulled open the pantry, and looked for the ingredients I swore I'd never touch again. Stew, the one she used to make. I didn't have everything. So, I improvised, used sweet potatoes instead of russet, threw in too much thyme. It was, objectively, a mess. But the kitchen smelled like 1986. Like Sunday afternoons and clumsy love and a woman who tried her whole life to get me to slow down enough to sit at the damn table. And that's when I cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just me, standing in my socks, holding a spoon that tasted like too much salt and too little time. I wasn't crying because she died. I was crying because she tried. And because for the longest time, I don't know if you've ever cried over stew. It's not a recommended experience, but it's oddly grounding. Something about the steam hitting your face, your eyes already wet, and the ridiculousness of the moment forces you to sit with it all. I left the pot simmering and went upstairs to grab a photo album. The old kind, with those crackling plastic covers and photos that stick if you close the pages too hard. I hadn't touched it in years. It still smelled faintly of mothballs and printer ink. There was one picture I always flipped to first me, maybe 11 years old, covered in mud from some failed attempt at backyard gardening. Mom's next to me, hands on her hips, grinning in that lopsided way she did when she was half annoyed but proud. She'd just finished yelling at me and was already laughing about it. That was her thing, snap fast. Forgive faster. I trace her outline in the photo, even in that grainy light. I can see the watch she always wore, one of those cheap Velcro bands she never replaced, even after I bought her a nicer one. Said the old one knew her better that night. As I looked at that photo, a strange thing happened. I started talking to it. I didn't even realize I was doing it until I was halfway through a sentence I used to think you were always judging me. My voice cracked. I paused. You probably were, I added with a shaky laugh. Then, but not the way I thought. And just like that, I fell into the conversation I should have had years ago, about how I resented her for worrying too much, for calling every Sunday, for the way she still treated me like a kid, long after I had gray in my beard. But now I would have given anything to hear her interrupt me mid-sentence and ask if I'd eaten, to tell me I looked pale, to remind me to wear socks in the house like I was still 12. And this is the weirdest part. Maybe the most vulnerable thing I'll admit here. I started mimicking her voice, like saying what she would have said back. You never call because you're afraid I'll hear how unhappy you are, I whispered, imagining her tone. She'd never said that. Not out loud, but I think she knew. There's a photo from my college graduation, right after I told her I was moving out of state. She smiled in the photo, but I remember she didn't say much the whole afternoon. That was her quiet heartbreak, never in the big moments, always in the shadows. I think she knew our distance wasn't just miles. I don't know why I kept so much from her. Maybe I thought I was sparing her. Maybe I thought I had to be perfect to earn her love, even though she offered it freely that night. I went to bed with the album beside me and the stew untouched. I wasn't hungry. Or maybe I just wanted to save it for the next day. To pretend she'd made it and left it for me in the fridge with a sticky note that said, "Heat for 2 mins. Don't add salt. Love you." But I couldn't sleep. My brain kept replaying her voicemail like a stuck record. Her tone, the hesitation in her voice, the pause before "I just wanted to hear you today." Was that the last message she left? I honestly don't remember. I might have deleted the others without listening. That thought hit me like a punch. How many hellos had I missed just because I assumed I had more time? I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering if everyone has a moment like this too late, too quiet, too full of words that can't be said. And if not, why me? But I know the answer. Because I made it this way. Because I thought being a good son meant being independent, successful, detached. She just wanted connection. And all she got, in the end, was silence. The next morning, I woke up still fully clothed. The album opened beside me. One of the plastic sheets had clung to my sleeve overnight. So when I sat up, it came with me like it didn't want to be let go either. I peeled it off gently and stared down at a picture of Mom holding a pie she'd clearly burned. Her face was mid-laugh, mouth wide, her glasses slightly crooked, and flour in her hair. I could almost hear her saying, "Well, guess we're ordering pizza tonight." That was the thing she could make even failure feel safe. I shuffled to the kitchen, reheated the stew, and sat at the table like I was waiting for someone. And that's when I realized I still set out 2 bowls, one for me, one for her. It's like my hands remembered something my head had buried. Grief is funny like that. It hides in muscle memory. There's a quiet moment after breakfast where I usually go through emails, check the calendar, pretend to be busy. But that day, I did something else. I opened my voice memos app, hit record, and said out loud, "Hi, Mom." I just sat there in silence for a while, heart racing like I was about to give a speech in front of a stadium. Then I started talking. I told her I missed her, that I was sorry for every time I dodged her calls, that I wished I had told her more about my life, about the little wins, the quiet joys, even the stupid things like the neighbor's cat finally letting me pet it. I admitted something that had taken me years to realize I was afraid she'd see through me, that she'd know I wasn't as strong as I pretended to be, that I hadn't figured it all out like I wanted her to believe. "I thought you'd be disappointed," I whispered into the phone, the red dot blinking back at me. And then, in the dumbest twist of all, I dropped the phone in my coffee. Yep, plop, straight in. I yelled a word I probably shouldn't say here and fished it out with a spoon, laughing like a maniac while tears ran down my face. The audio was ruined, of course, but maybe that was the point. Maybe some confessions aren't meant to be saved. Just said, that's what she would have told me, I think. I grabbed a towel, wrapped the phone in it like a baby bird, and sat back down. My heart felt lighter, like I had opened a window in a room I didn't realize was sealed shut. And then something strange happened. I started remembering things I thought were gone. Not big dramatic moments, just the small stuff, like the way she used to hum when she cooked. Never a real tune, just this sort of half song, like her soul needed to vibrate a little. Or how she always had Band-Aids in her wallet, for strangers. She once patched up a kid's scraped knee in a grocery store and gave him a butterscotch candy. I remember being mortified. Now I think that's one of the kindest things I've ever seen. And I remembered something else, something sharper. One night, when I was maybe 14, I got caught sneaking out. I had this grand plan of meeting up with friends at the lake. She was waiting for me on the porch when I came back. No yelling, just her sitting there in the dark, blanket around her shoulders, cup of tea in hand. She looked at me and said, "I get scared when I can't hear you." I thought she meant literally, like, couldn't hear me sneaking out. But now, I think she meant something deeper. I get scared when you go quiet, when you shut me out. I've done that to a lot of people. Pulled away when I needed connection the most. Hid behind sarcasm and work schedules. Skipped holidays with the excuse of flight prices or deadlines. I inherited a lot from her. Her laugh, her clumsiness, her love of old detective shows. But I never inherited her courage to reach out first. And I wish I had. Because sometimes the difference between closeness and distance is one phone call. One awkward but honest message. One I miss you sent before it becomes a eulogy. That morning, with my coffee-soaked phone and 2 bowls on the table, I promised myself I wouldn't make anyone else feel unheard the way I let her feel. Even if I had to start with myself. I wish I could tell you I kept that promise flawlessly. That I immediately started calling everyone I loved, showing up at every birthday, becoming the poster child for emotionally available adults. I didn't. What I did do was smaller, slower, but real. I started replying to texts within the same day. I called my sister without needing a reason. I even left a voicemail for my cousin Brian just to say, "Hey, remember that time we broke Grandpa's shed door and blamed the wind?" "Yeah, I think I'm ready to confess," he texted back. "Wind is still guilty. Call me later." Little things. But they added up. And then one day, I opened that old voicemail from Mom again. Not the famous one, the voicemail. The one I told you about at the beginning. The one I kept avoiding because it scared me more than I cared to admit. I sat on the floor of the hallway. I don't know why. Maybe because that's where I dropped my keys the day I found out she died. It's like some part of me thought the floor would remember what to do. I pressed play. It started with static. Then her voice, soft and breathy. "Hey, sweetheart, I don't want anything. Just wanted to hear your voice. Call me if you can. Love you." That was it. 21 seconds. But it knocked the air out of me because I hadn't heard her voice in over a year. I'd let it fade in my mind like steam on a mirror. And suddenly, there she was, fragile and real. She didn't sound disappointed. She didn't sound like she needed anything from me. She just wanted to hear my voice. That one line, "just wanted to hear your voice," played over and over in my head for days. I wrote it on a sticky note and stuck it on the bathroom mirror. I made it the background on my phone. I even said it out loud to myself a few times. Like it was some kind of spell. Because I realized I do that too. I check in with people. Not because I need something, but because hearing their voice reminds me that I'm not alone in this mess. It's the most human thing we do, right? And yet, for years, I thought being independent meant not needing anyone. That strength was silence. That if I needed comfort, something was wrong with me. But that voicemail, it was like a permission slip to stop pretending. I shared it with my sister. She cried. I cried. Then we laughed at how we both cried. Classic emotional sandwich. Then something strange happened. She asked if she could play it at Thanksgiving. At first I was like, no. Why would we turn our stuffing into a therapy session? But then I thought, why not? So we did. There we were. The whole family circled around a turkey, too dry to swallow, listening to Mom's voice on a tinny speaker. No one talked, no one even chewed. And when it ended, there was this silence that felt sacred, like she had been in the room. My uncle wiped his eyes and said, "Damn, I wish I had a voicemail like that." And that's when it hit me how lucky I actually was. Grief tricks you into focusing on what you lost. But sometimes, if you squint through the sadness, you see what you were given. A voicemail isn't a replacement for a mother, but it's a thread, a tether, a tiny bridge between then and now. That night, after everyone left, I sat on the porch with a blanket around my shoulders, sipping lukewarm tea full circle, I guess. And I thought about all the versions of my mom I had known. The young mom who juggled grocery bags and kids with equal chaos. The tired mom who fell asleep on the couch watching reruns. The older mom who texted with one finger and still wrote checks at the store. And the final mom, the voice in the dark, who reached out just to say, "I love you one more time." It's strange. That voicemail used to feel like a wound. Now it feels like a hug. I still don't play it often, but knowing it's there, that's enough. I wish I could say that everything after that moment was peaceful, that having that voicemail changed my entire life, and I finally became someone who calls back, who shows up, who remembers birthdays and always brings flowers. But life has this way of being more stubborn, and so do we. See, after Thanksgiving, there was this rush of emotion of connection. Everyone was reaching out more, checking in. I thought maybe, just maybe, we were all going to get it right this time. And then people stopped replying again. The group chat went quiet. My sister got busy. Brian ghosted me for 3 weeks because, in his words, I got sucked into a YouTube rabbit hole about sea cucumbers and forgot what year it was. And me, I caught myself falling back into old rhythms too. Back into the habit of seeing a name pop up on my phone and thinking I'll call them tomorrow. Tomorrow became next week. Next week became next month. Grief and love. Funny how they're both so intense in the moment, but fade so fast when the world keeps spinning. And guilt sneaks in after the warmth fades. It's quiet, but it's sticky. I started wondering, am I really learning from any of this? Or am I just turning her death into a story so I don't have to feel how much it still hurts? There's this drawer in my bedroom I almost never open. It's a mess. Crumpled receipts, tangled earbuds, pens that don't work. You know the one. At the very back of that drawer is a birthday card she sent me a year before she passed. The front says, "To my not-so-little boy anymore." And inside, it just says, "I'm proud of you. Always." No long letter, just those 6 words in her cursive. And for some reason, that card made me angrier than the voicemail ever did. Because it was so simple, so unassuming. And yet it cracked something open in me. I wasn't proud of me. Not yet. Not for the years I let drift by. Not for the silence I allowed to grow between us. She gave me unconditional love. And I gave her polite distance. I sat on the floor with that card in my lap for almost an hour. And I swear, if you walked by the window, I must have looked ridiculous middle-aged man in pajama pants, holding a birthday card like it was a grenade. But sometimes, healing looks like that. Messy, silent, soft. That night, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years, an old friend I ghosted after college because I didn't know how to say, "I'm not okay." His name's Derek. We used to sit on the roof of our dorm, eating cereal at 2 a.m., wondering if adulthood was going to suck as much as we feared. Spoiler, it kind of did. He answered on the 3rd ring. Well, look who fell through a time portal. I laughed. Then I cried. Then I laughed again because I was crying. And I told him the truth about Mom, about the voicemail, about the card, about how I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I didn't want to keep carrying it alone. He didn't try to fix anything. He just said, "Yeah, me too." That conversation didn't change the world, but it changed something in me. Because when you finally admit to someone else that you're sad, it's like you stop being trapped with it. You still feel it, but now it has air. And air is good. Air lets things move. I started talking more after that. Not like overshare at every grocery store more, but I let people in just enough. And slowly, I began to rewrite the story I've been telling myself for years, that I'm too late, that I missed my chance to be the kind of son who really saw his mom. that the only thing I can do now is feel bad about it. That story isn't true. Not entirely. Because grief isn't just about what we lost. It's about what we choose to carry forward. I've come to realize that carrying forward doesn't mean turning into some perfect version of yourself overnight. It means showing up in small, deliberate ways, even if they feel awkward or late or shaky. So I started doing this thing every Sunday. I pick one person in my life, someone I've fallen out of touch with or never really got close to in the first place, and I call them. No text, no you free warning, just a call. I call it Mom's Hour. First one was my Aunt Rita. We hadn't spoken in years. Not because of anything dramatic, just entropy, life drift, the silence that sneaks up on you like fog. She answered with a confused, "Hello," like I'd called from beyond the grave. I said, "Hey, just thought I'd check in." And that started a 2-hour call about her garden, her knee surgery, and a stray cat named Bingo. It was nothing groundbreaking, but it made me feel tethered, like I was stitching something back together. Thread by awkward thread. Another Sunday. I called an old coworker I used to eat lunch with every day for 5 years. I had to start with, "I know this is weird," which is just code for, "I miss you, but don't know how to say it." She laughed, said she missed me too. We didn't even talk about work, just dogs, life. How neither of us uses LinkedIn anymore because it feels like a digital job, fair hosted by anxiety. These tiny moments, these strange little calls, they aren't big redemption arcs. They don't cancel out the years of silence I kept with my mom. But they're honest, and they're mine. There's a kind of peace that comes from effort, even if it's clumsy, even if the person doesn't pick up. I leave a voicemail. I say something kind. I imagine her smiling, wherever she is, hearing that I finally got good at using my voice. And you know what? I started noticing her more. Not in a spiritual, she's watching me from the clouds way, but in the way my body reacts when I pass sunflowers at the market. Or when a recipe calls for too much garlic and I chuckle, because she would have said, "Double it." I hear her laugh in the back of my head when I leave the oven on too long. I see her handwriting on Post-its. I forgot I tucked into cookbooks. She lingers. And in a way, so do I. Because grief, real grief, isn't loud. It's not the sobbing or the funeral slideshow or the moment someone hands you a tissue. Real grief is when you want to call someone and realize you can't. And it's in what you do next with that ache. It's the choice to stay open instead of shutting down. One Sunday, I called Brian again, and he picked up and said, "Are you dying?" I said, "No, just being emotionally proactive." He said, "Oh God, that's worse." But we talked. We really talked. And in the middle of it, he got quiet and said, "You're different, softer." And I realized I wasn't trying so hard to be funny all the time, or the strong one, or the emotionally untouchable guy who always finds a way to say, "It's fine," when it's not. I still miss her. God, I miss her. And I still replay that voicemail on the bad nights, not to punish myself anymore, but to remind myself that I was loved, that she said it out loud, that it exists in the world, preserved in a digital echo. I don't cry every time now. Sometimes I just smile. Other times, I talk back to it. "Miss you too. Ma, I'm trying. That's the word that stuck with me the most. Because for so long, I thought the past was a closed book. That regret was a kind of prison sentence. But now, I think maybe it's more like a seed. Something small and buried and full of weight, but also full of the possibility to grow something better. So I keep calling, keep showing up, keep telling stories like this one. Not because I figured it all out, but because this is how I stay tethered to what matters. And maybe, just maybe, It's how I help someone else do the same. Sometimes I wonder what my mom would think of me now. The version of me that listens more than he talks. The one who actually apologizes without dressing it up as a joke. The man who still messes up, still forgets birthdays sometimes, but really tries to repair what he can. There's this quiet moment I keep coming back to. A memory I didn't think was important at the time. I was 17, angry at the world. Of course. My mom had just told me I couldn't take the car out past 10. I stomped down the hallway like some dramatic soap opera character. And as I passed the kitchen, she was standing there, back to me, chopping carrots. She didn't turn around, just said, "You don't have to understand me now. Just don't make the mistake of thinking I don't love you." I didn't reply. Slammed the door to my room. Played loud music because I thought rebellion was a personality trait. And the next morning, I pretended it never happened. But that line, it's been echoing for decades. She was right. I didn't understand her. I thought her love was control, her worry, a burden, her silence, a kind of emotional failure. But I see it now. The effort it takes to stay standing when someone you love pushes you away. The grace to love without always needing applause. I wonder if she ever felt that I truly saw her. Like her, not just the mom version, not just the one who packed my lunches and left money in the mailbox for field trips, but the woman behind the routines, the person with dreams, fears, exhaustion, pride. I wish I'd asked her more about who she was before she became mom, what she wanted at 25, what made her laugh when no one was looking, who she used to be when she wasn't worrying about me. I think about that a lot now, how we only start asking the right questions when it's too late to get the answers. There's a photo of her in my hallway. She's in her 30s, standing on a rocky hill, hair blowing in the wind, holding a coffee thermos and grinning like the world had finally let her breathe. It's not a perfect photo. Her scarf is caught on her earring, her shoes untied, but it's the realest version of her I've ever seen. And every time I walk past it, I pause, I say hi, sometimes out loud. Sometimes I tell her something small, like, "I made your banana bread today. Didn't burn it this time." Or, "Brian told me he loves me." And I didn't freak out. Because yeah, he said it. He said it last week, out of nowhere. We were watching some ridiculous cooking competition where chefs had to make dessert out of onions. And he turned to me and just said, "You're good for me." You know that I laughed, tried to deflect. But he didn't let me. He said, "I love you." And I looked at him. And for the first time, I didn't say something clever. I just said, "I love you too." And I meant it. I think that's the part my mom would have smiled about the most. Not the therapy, not the Sunday calls, but that fact that her son, the one who never picked up the phone, who thought vulnerability was a trap, finally let someone all the way in. I hope wherever she is, she knows that her voicemail didn't go to waste, that her words still reach me, still guide me, that the things we leave behind don't disappear. They echo, they nudge, they stay. And that maybe the best way to honor someone isn't to build a shrine or post a tribute, but to live in a way that whispers, "You taught me well. I still mess up. I still have days where I want to crawl back into old patterns, but they don't last as long now. The shame doesn't swallow me whole because I have her voice. I have Brian's steady patience. I have Sunday calls and burnt banana bread and a hallway photo of a woman who gave everything without asking much in return. And I have myself changed, softened, still flawed, but open. That feels like enough. It's quiet now. The kind of quiet you only hear at night. When the world has finally stopped making demands, the refrigerator hums like a lullaby. and there's a soft click from the heater that reminds me I'm home, and warm, and safe. I'm sitting in the same chair I always use when I record these, the one with the threadbare armrest from where I rest my elbow too often. The lamp is on its dimmest setting. There's a blanket over my legs. Even though it's not really cold, it's just comforting, you know? And I'm thinking about how strange life is, how something as small as a saved voicemail can hold a person in it, their tone, their mood, their love. How a simple call me back can sound like I miss you if you listen closely enough. I used to think grief was something loud, a scream, a sob, a dramatic goodbye. But most of the time, it's a whisper, a room you avoid, a song you skip, a voicemail you don't delete because pressing that button feels like betrayal. But healing is quiet too. It's in the way you remember to breathe during a hard moment, in the way you speak softer to others and to yourself. It's in the way you finally answer the phone when someone calls just because you can. So if you're holding on to something, an old voicemail, a photo, a sentence you never got to say, I hope you know it's okay. You're allowed to keep it. You're allowed to let it go too. There's no rule book, no right timeline. Just keep your heart open, even a little, even when it hurts, because love doesn't vanish. It lingers in us, around us, and sometimes, if we're lucky, it speaks again just when we need it most. Good night, wherever you are, and sweet dreams. Hey guys, tonight I want to tell you something that's been sitting in my chest for years. It starts in a hallway, not a dramatic one, just mine. Beige walls, laminate floors that pretend to be wood, and one of those motion sensor lights that clicks on a full second too late. So you always walk the first few steps in darkness. It's quiet, almost annoyingly so. The kind of quiet that makes the hum of your refrigerator sound like it's trying to tell you something important. I'm standing there barefoot, holding my phone. There's that little orange notification one I haven't touched in years. Voicemail. I don't even remember what the app looks like anymore, but tonight, for some reason, I press it. Maybe it's the way the hallway smells like dust and old books. Or maybe I just miss her in that annoying, sneaky way grief works. Either way, there it is, that voicemail. The title just says, Mom. No timestamp, no transcription, just the gray play button.